What's up, everybody? Good morning. Happy Wednesday, August 19th. Quite literally texting as we are going live here. Working my sources, as the kids say. Um, I didn't realize this, but if you weren't watching Ben After Dark yesterday, we kind of broke the story that Oshkosh, with the help of TJ, of course, um, that Oshkosh passed a 12-year moratorium on data centers, and there are no stories available about it on Google right now. I did not realize how fresh that was, and I probably should have exploited that insider information a little more than I did, but no one's ever going to accuse me of being good at this job. I hope you're all having a fantastic start to your day. Um, I absolutely am. We may be getting visited by somebody. That text message you saw me sending was actually trying to finalize a potential guest for today's show. And TJ, if you are listening, I see you popping a couple other names off there as well. Quite literally, I know you don't work for me, but if you can reach out to any of them, if anybody wants to come on that was in the room, just send me an email and I will forward them a link to come on the program. But lots of excitement there. The story should be coming out later today, but just a little bit of the basic information for anybody that might not be aware. And hello to everybody saying hello. Um, where did it go? Where did it go? Yeah. It doesn't pause all data center applications from being considered, just those over 10,000 square feet. Still worried about someone proposing a 9,990 square foot data center during this time. Still, good news is the most dangerous and impactful ones are the hyperscale ones. So that's what took place in Oshkosh while Ben After Dark was going on. As more information is made available, and as I said, I may be getting somebody who was at that meeting yesterday. I don't want to use any names as of right now because I haven't actually reached out to anybody myself, and I don't want to just start name dropping without any permission. Old habits, my more professional career. Um, and TJ, I don't know if you're listening to the show or not, but I see your messages and I'm going to keep an eye on our chat in case you send me any info. And I appreciate everything you're doing. Awesome stuff. I went to Google it at like 8:30 this morning and there's not a single story about it. And it's like the only thing people are talking about in Wisconsin right now is data centers. And how was that not immediately a story that was written? And I recognize I technically could have written it, but I wasn't there. I was with all of you. How could I have possibly given you the information that you needed? But thank you for being here nevertheless. Who knows what we were talking about during Ben After Dark? Probably not anything even remotely relevant relative to the data center conversation there. We got a heck of a show planned for you today, though, as I continue working. I swear to God, to tech people in the audience, it's like every time something working, two more things break. Um, I'm struggling to get text messages on my computer right now, which is a new thing that I am dealing with. But we'll work through that as time goes on. But shout out to Oshkosh, another wonderful town, another wonderful location that is saying no to these effing data centers. It's almost like um there's a very obvious policy that a lot of particular politicians should maybe jump on board with, but who am I to tell you how to live your life? As TR says in the TikTok chat, there's a number of moratoriums that have passed recently. Exactly. Exactly. Oshkosh is just the most recent. It's almost like there's some common sense here. And I'm going to redo some of the content from last night as well. I see El Joe excited about what took place in Florida. We absolutely will be jumping into that as well. That's actually, I wasn't able to put the thumbnail up today because again, my effing text messages aren't working on my computer right now. But I want to talk a little bit about Angie Nixon down in Florida because another state, this time freaking Florida, gets a DSA candidate while Wisconsin still has to settle for the incremental approach here. I'm not jealous. I'm not angry. I'm just following along with what's happening here. Next game plan is Green Bay, according to Roosevelt. So thank you for that. Good to know. I'm actually going to try and make that one. I just didn't have the time yesterday. Um, if I would have put Bernard in my thumbnail, you would have died. Yeah, I feel that. Bernard's a cool cat. I'm glad he ended up coming away with it. How late did you end up staying up watching those results come in? Because I'm pretty sure wasn't that a longer? Didn't that one take longer to determine? I don't even know. But we'll be jumping into all of this as time goes on. Um, and I will have more about the data centers. Hopefully, if one of these guests that we're reaching out to that are in government or in the media want to hop on, I'd be happy to chat with them there. You don't think he's going to win? That's lame. That's unfortunate. But yes. So plenty of things. I'm a little haphazard at the start of the show today because like again, I was working the phones right up until I went live on the air. The way my mind works, I'm typically internalizing all of my data up until the literal moment I go live, and then I'm like bang, and I have it all kind of organized in my head. That isn't what happened today. Today I have difficulties in trying to and I just kind of had to go live because I know the second it hits 9:01, Jarmani and Alex Greenhair are waiting to tell me that I didn't get here on time, and I refuse to allow that to happen. Yeah, I understand, TR. I meant the larger offices. I feel that. I shouldn't speak so hyperbolic, but you're not wrong. Um, are you still meeting with the Dems tonight? Yes, I am. I'm going at 7 p.m. I'm not going to say where, but I'm going, and it's basically an outreach to progressives in Northeast Wisconsin and what needs to happen for a coalescence around the party right now. And I'm going to tell them exactly what I tell you guys all the time on this program. Not going to be anything. Okay, perfect. We got Rachel Dowling coming on the show at 10:30. Hold on one second here, guys. You might have to just watch me do a little bit of behind the scenes as I write this email out real quick. Rachel, of course, she spells it weird. That's great. Rachel. Okay. I apologize, guys. Let me just get this. I figure it's better to have the information than for me to just kind of shoot from the hip here, as I am wont to do. Um, okay, we got that. StreamYard for 10:30. Okay. And then we just shebang. We're almost into focusing mode here. Shebang. Like again, it's not like I'm on the radio anymore. I don't know why I'm so beholden to these high and tight start times all the time, but the idea of starting at 9:01 physically makes my skin crawl. So I'd rather start on time and be a little more confused as the show kicks off rather than take the extra. Don't tell me what you'd prefer I do because I promise I will ignore it. I ignore it. And hello, as everybody continues to trickle in. Phil out in Oshkosh says, Ben, to answer your question, because the title of the show is Why Does Everybody Else Get Nice Things? Other states know a good thing when they see it. Wisconsin has a bunch of confused individuals and some beer blind also. And I feel that. I feel that. For those of you that don't know, yet another potentially statewide opportunity for a DSA member to join Congress has started. Why am I living in the past, Violet? What do you mean? Because I'm still in radio mindset. Um, but Angie Nixon, organizer, community organizer, union organizer, very strong socialist candidate who I had not heard a lot about. Eljo out in Minnesota actually had been following along with her. She's like, you should check this Angie girl out. I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then she ends up winning. And the more I learned about her over the last 12 hours, I was like, yeah, all right. All right, let's see where this goes. Um, um, and now I am thrilled the more that I find out about this woman. And probably the most interesting part. Oh, by the way, Roush Studio. Tim Roush Plumbing. Shout out to OG Michelle, who reached out to him and shouted out Outside the Box for her reason for doing so. Anybody looking for plumbing concerns, this guy's the man. He was on my program on Friday to start the show off. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, you can see that on the Tube of You. Well, hello, Susan. Long time no hear from. Thank you for being here. But there's the number. That's a free text line. If you have any questions, also RoushPlumbing.com for the email address. Roush Plumbing Studios. Technically, I won't be in the real Roush Plumbing Studios for another week and a half, but I'm calling it now. So, you know, I fulfill my part of the bargain. But, and I see Jay saying in effing Florida, of all places, not fair. I know. And the craziest part is, so she beat a name that might be familiar to you guys, Alexander Vindman, who was integral in the effort to try and get Donald Trump impeached in the first Trump presidency back during the quid pro quo conversation for, money for dirt on Hunter Biden. You guys, I'm sure, all remember the story where I believe he actually was impeached. It didn't pass the Senate because, of course, it didn't pass the Senate. But like, what? Are we actually going to talk about real issues in the mainstream media? Alexander Vindman was a major part of that. Moreover, he outraised her financially 10-1. For every $1 Angie Nixon made, Vindman made 10. And she beat him by double-digit points in effing Florida, where they are allegedly absolutely terrified of communism and socialism. But she won by a landslide. And the confusing part is that was for Senate, like U.S. Senate. Then you have the governor's race, and oh God, I'm blanking on it now. See, this is what I'm saying. Normally, I'm much more composed. Florida Governor Dem. David Jolly. David Jolly came away with the Democratic ticket for the governor's race, and he used to be a Republican. So you have the Republican winning, because I'm not going to pretend he's a Democrat. He's just like going to be anti-Trump. He'll say nice things about minorities and immigrants and whatnot, which is nice, but he's not going to do any of the fiscal stuff that you want to see happen. And maybe in Florida, that's what needs to happen, because they don't pay their state income tax. They have a different kind of mindset down there. It's a different kind of community. A lot of people are retirees and move there. Far be it from me. I do not know their economic system. For all I know, on the grander scale, like for Florida specifically, that's exactly what Democrats need to do to win. I don't know. Or that's just some bullshit centrist talking points that I just parroted right there. I do not know Florida's situation, so I'm not going to pretend. And I really wish Cynthia were here right now, because she is listening in Florida, and I'd love to get her input. And by the way, I will throw the link I just sent Rachel. If for anybody that wants to join the show here. Ginger says, I have noticed Wisco is usually behind a year or more in most things. A lot of people I know went to Florida, so that explains that. That's interesting. Violet says, I noticed that about the Midwest. They're always just a bit behind. See, I was actually caught off guard, because the more I know about Wisconsin, like, it really is a progressive mindset here. Like, again, you guys saw how cocky I was Tuesday morning last week. Like, I was so certain what was going to end up happening. I was genuinely blindsided by what ultimately ended up taking place. And because we're next to Minnesota, too bad Native Gamer's not here. Otherwise, he'd be going off with that one there. But this woman, she was on, she's been doing the rounds. She's been all over liberal mainstream media the last 12 hours. I've been watching a ton of interviews, or at least the snippets that were available online post-interview. And of course, they're asking her about whether or not she's willing to fund a genocide. She said no. Vindman was very pro-genocide, hence why he lost by 10 points. Eventually, Democrats are going to realize exactly how cancerous that is to basically any campaign, because fundamentally, most Democrats have similar economic policy, or at least the verbiage is similar. And what sticks out are those votes are those comments about Gaza. She was asked about defund the police. She was asked about open borders. I wonder if after Republicans win their primaries, they go on Fox News and they get asked a bunch of questions that just essentially caricaturize what Republicans stand for, or if they're asked a bunch of questions about how they're going to beat back the socialist scourge that is coming their way. Because something tells me I know the answer to that question already. We just got that principled media. Bibby, I'm just saying Angie Nixon won. You can go ahead and Google it. Angie Nixon beat the shit out of Alexander Vindman in Florida, another DSA candidate, won by double digits despite being outspent 10-1. And what's crazy, let me see. I think I saved it, but one of those gambling sites was just way off, but I don't know if right up until the vote, like in February of 2026, so 6 months ago, Alexander Vindman and Angie Nixon went from essentially both down there on the bottom while people learned about them to Vindman having an over 85% chance of winning from February of 2026 until the final hour while votes were being tabulated. And then it just crisscrosses and was way off. That's as per Kalshi. So that's how much. Once 81.4% of the vote was counting, Kalshi just what and just completely 180'd. So for 6 months, the establishment was telling you there was no race. I wasn't following along with this. A lot of people weren't. Eljo was. Shout out to Eljo. Juba, how excited are you about freaking... I sent the link. Juba, this is the time for you to figure out how to use this. I'm sending it again. How excited are you about this Angie Nixon woman? I gotta believe that you're thrilled with that victory over Vindman. Yeah, I did see that Larkin lost, which absolutely sucks. Wait, what are you saying here? There were fake newspapers going out in rural areas with scary propaganda about Hong. I can confirm one in the Manitowoc area. Yeah, but like, don't tell me that bullshit wasn't happening in Florida. You know what I mean? In Florida, it's actually easier to fearmonger about socialism and communism because so many of the people who have fled to Florida oftentimes were escaping shittier versions of those economic systems. So, I feel like there was probably an effort to fearmonger on that front as well. But I don't know that for a fact. It's thoroughly disappointing. But so they had Alexander Vindman, and this really is an eye-opening point to make here because Vindman is a liberal darling, right? His main claim to fame is he was cracking down on Trump and trying to get him impeached in the first term. I have been on the record multiple times. One of the only 3 videos that I have uploaded to my YouTube page, because all of these things that you guys watch get funneled into the live category. One of the 3 videos that I have saved is me speaking to the 7th Congressional Dems. And in that speech, I said, if and when the Democrats get a majority in the House, and I know it's an uphill battle, but possibly the Senate, I don't want to hear a damn thing about impeachment trials of Donald Trump. I don't want to hear about corruption trials. I mean, yes, crack down on that, but if you're going to make that your main focal point, you're going to have an uphill battle in 2028. Talk to me about how you're going to make people's lives more affordable. Talk to me about the pieces of legislation that you're going to try and get on Donald Trump's desk every single day and make the Republicans not vote on them or vote against them. We're going to be talking later on in the program about Tom Tiffany's votes to cut Medicare and Medicaid in the name of fiscal responsibility. And then we're going to talk about what Republican fiscal responsibility actually looks like in the year of our Lord 2026. Alexander Vindman represents the we're not going to bring economic policy to the table wing of the Democratic Party. They have the Ooga Booga isn't Donald Trump's scary flank of the Democratic Party. He was outraising his opponent 10-1 and just took an absolute ass whooping in a fairly red state. Whether or not she's going to win or lose is another conversation entirely. But you know what? There's a lot of optimism about Florida right now because every state is struggling with a cost of living crisis, but Florida is uniquely struggling because their wealth inequality is even larger. Want to know why? Because they don't fucking tax the rich. So you have these you have people struggling to get by. You have essentially Florida being viewed as the headquarters for MAGA, with Mar-a-Lago and Donald Trump having moved his residence there and all these things. I saw 10-1 ranting. Sorry. And you have all of these different factors going into it here, but there is a growing feeling of discontent that is actually outpacing the national feeling of discontent in America, in Florida, due to economic concerns. And Vindman was running on, I was the one that held Trump to account when he said, I need dirt on Hunter Biden before I'm going to give you any financial aid. And while the people going through Ukraine and their struggle are relevant to Americans, as selfish as it sounds, it's just not top priority for a lot of people. And that's just the reality of it. And that is no longer now just my speculation, but that has been borne out in empirical fact. Jennifer, by the way, says they're working on getting a moratorium in Wisconsin Rapids as well. I got to get David Crowley on this freaking show. So that he'll, because this doesn't reconcile, this does not gel well with his idea that he wants to become a powerhouse as well. But I don't want to get sidetracked right now, but I appreciate the info nevertheless. I don't know why, by the way, Facebook people, I'm going to try it on my iPad, but your messages aren't loading quickly here. I'm not 100% sure why, but let me just pull this up here really quickly. Can't you tell this was a bit more of a disheveled start? It's all right, though. We're going to be okay. The kids are going to be all right. I'm the kids. Yeah. All right. So, Florida showing us exactly what we could have. It's just add it to the list. Add it to the list of Maine and New York City and different districts in Denver and the mayor of Seattle and the mayor of LA and I feel like I'm blanking. Oh, in Michigan and fill in the blank here. Everybody other than Wisconsin getting that scary socialism in their candidate, except for Wisconsin, which is unfortunate. It's almost like there's a growing trend nationally that is pretty difficult to avoid. But shout out to Florida. Shout out to Angie Nixon. The more I hear about that woman, the more I like about that woman. And she really doesn't sound like a politician. There's a clip going viral right now of Lindsey Graham's sister, who was asked during a debate what she thinks about foreign policy. And her response was, foreign policy isn't really my thing. And then said, I'm not a polished politician. You're not going to get polished answers from me. Well, there's one thing about Peggy Craig for sure. Thank you, Eljo. There's one thing about not being a polished politician, which I can get behind. Like, I'm in favor of that. But there's another thing about being ignorant, about showing up and not knowing what the fuck you're talking about. And that's the camp that Lindsey Graham's sister gets funneled into. Angie Craig, you can tell there's that southern drawl to her voice. She talks a little bit slower. Like, I feel like I get 5 sentences in for every 1 sentence that she gets in, because down south, no offense, Georgia, you guys just operate, or Violet, you guys just kind of operate at a different speed than the rest of us. And there's nothing wrong with that. Realistically, the Midwest really doesn't even keep up with the Peggy Flanagan. Dang it. The Midwest really doesn't keep up with the pace people from Pittsburgh go. But she has that slow southern drawl that, like, you can tell it's not the normal political approach. And I'm here for that. I used to say the same thing about John Kasich in the Republican Party. They would ask him questions, and he would be like, Well, and like people would mock him for not immediately being able to like bow, ba bow, ba bow. Like if I ever ran for office, you guys that are regular listeners know that I could just show up and be like, "Well, the strongest American middle class was between 1945 and 1983. We were taxing millionaires between 70 and 91%." And I would rattle off all these different things. And I could just bang and spit it all out there. These newer candidates, these DSA candidates, the people who are not lifelong politicians who were groomed for the position, have a different disposition and don't necessarily speak the same way that we are used to. As long as the content is there, no one, or at least I don't care. It's when you don't sound like a politician, but you also don't know what the hell you're talking about that I have a bit of an issue. Bibby says, I have no idea how you talk as well as you do. That part of my brain doesn't work like that. I don't know. It's quite literally, it's natural. Like I'm not even trying to brag. It's it's just the way people have asked me. They're like, "Did you go to broadcasting school?" And I'm like, "No, I'm winging it." So I appreciate the compliment here. What do we have here? Many old school Southern women think they are being sly like a fox, acting aloof. I dig that. I buy that. Use the strengths you got. You know what I mean? My dad always used to say the greatest gift anybody could ever give you is to underestimate you. And I live by those words. So I feel that. Like here, I'll just let me find a clip really quick for those of you that don't know how she sounds, just to drive a point home, because you'll hear what I'm talking about immediately. It's a little slower, it's a little more thoughtful the way that she's talking. It's just different, but you can tell when they're on a slick New York show. Let's see, let's watch them trying to get her on Israel, because why not, right? Like we'd rather Republicans be in office than somebody who wants to end funding for a genocide, right? I mean, that I feel like we can all agree on that. I'm joking, don't clip that out of context. Okay, here we go. One of these days there will be a producer on this show and they'll be doing this stuff. But until then, unfortunately, TikTok, because TikTok's a bastard, I get dinged for copyright if I show you the video. So you're just going to have to listen for right now.
Would you support cutting off military and economic aid to Israel?
At this time, I believe what's happening over in Israel and in Palestine is not good for Israelis or Palestinians. And I believe that Netanyahu is a war criminal who needs to answer to his crimes. And I do not support sending any money or any weapons to Israel at this moment. No, I don't.
So just a sidebar here, Gene Robinson. I just want to do a quick summary, and you have the next question to the state legislator. Her position on aid to Israel. By the way, just for people that right now their hair is like combustible, that's Rahm Emanuel's position on Israel now. Rahm Emanuel, whose father was there at the birth of Israel, who fought for Israel. Rahm's position is we should treat Israel just like every other country. We should treat them like our allies, Great Britain. We should treat them like France. And we should give that aid based on how they, how they conduct themselves. And right now, Rahm doesn't believe that Netanyahu is doing, just as the legislator said, what is in the best interest of Israel or the best interest of America.
Isn't it interesting how much even the mainstream media is starting to change their narrative on the matter? And by the way, if they are intending to try and force Rahm Emanuel down our throats, I will be starting a metaphorical fire. So if I may suggest right now, don't even try and make Rahm Emanuel a thing. Nobody wants that, including present company who's hosting this podcast right now. Nobody gives a shit what Rahm Emanuel thinks about anything. That is the man that authored the bank bailout during the Obama years. Nobody cares. That woman is changing opinions. Remember a week ago when they thought Francesca Hong was going to win, that same man was slamming his fist saying, if you want to rule, and, pouting about the fact that socialists and progressives are kind of the new way forward within the Democratic Party, and that people kind of have to get on board with that. Unfortunately, not true in Wisconsin, just true everywhere else. I still maintain. I wonder, can someone look it up for me? Just, you know what? I'll just look it up now. Does Florida have open primaries? No, they have closed primaries. I'm willing to bet that is why the socialists won by 12 points. I'll never be able to prove it, at least not with the kind of data that I have, but I can almost guarantee you that is why she won by the points that she did. And had Michigan or Wisconsin been a closed primary, and there are drawbacks to closed primaries. Even when I Googled it, the top story from Spectrum is Florida's closed primaries leave more than 3 million independent voters out of partisan races. As I highlighted, up until 2021, I was a registered independent, but in Pennsylvania, we also had closed primaries. And as a result, I was boxed out of voting for Bernie Sanders in 2016 and in 2020. So that's kind of the framing. And I was pissed off, and I ended up going to register as a Dem. And of course, a year later, I moved to Wisconsin, and the rest is history. So now here I am hanging this big ugly D around my neck because I don't want to go and do the paperwork. And it's just an entirely different system now. So I have a feeling that probably contributed to that. We have a couple registered independents in the TikTok chat here as well. I didn't know there was such a thing as closed primaries, says Jay. Yeah, no, Pennsylvania's closed primaries. I know we deal with that. Clearly, Florida does as well. So you have to be registered for the party you're voting for. People are pissed too because Angie was arrested for protesting gerrymandering. I'm going to fall in love with this woman, aren't I? Is she married? Call me. Who even remembers that guy? Who are you talking about, Carl? Who did I say? Bernie? And Old Lib, by the way, I did the text message last night during Ben After Dark. I didn't notice you there, but we will be jumping into that again, and we will be speaking with an elected official about the moratorium in Oshkosh at 10:30. By the way, I do have that confirmed. And shout out to TJ for doing the behind the scenes stuff there. I appreciate all the work that you do as well behind the scenes. One of my newer shadow producers that kind of helps me keep my thoughts in order behind the scenes, and I appreciate all their help with what I'm trying to do here. As a consolation, we're glad that you're here. Don't put words in my mouth. Don't put words in my mouth, CKK. But so we'll have somebody talking about, we'll do more data center talk and fiscal conservative talk and all that kind of stuff. It'll kind of it's all going to blend. I do the weave, much like our sitting president. I do the weave. We're going to tie it all together here. But I was not following along with that Florida race, and I'm kind of kicking myself for doing so. And I'll be real, I'm still a little pissed off. I recognize that it's my job to like suck it up and be informative. But like after the way the Wisconsin primaries went, I kind of checked out of primaries. And big mistake. I learned my lesson. I won't do that again because I slept on a pretty fantastic candidate. And as this show, like I will always cover Wisconsin topics, but I would like to start reaching out to more national guests. So I have a feeling getting Angie on here might be a stretch goal of mine to try and accomplish here to see if we can talk her into that. If Hong had won, it would have made more sense, but whatever. I'll try and figure it out. But shout out to her. Shout out to all the people running. Awesome stuff all around. So I love that. And I do want to switch gears here into the posts that I made this morning. Before I do that, though, just a little bit about the show. I do want to shout out everybody. I don't know how many newer people are here, but I threw a post up on my Book of Faces account yesterday just saying, hey, I've made a lot of new friends here. If you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, my TubeU channel. And I got 40 new subscribers yesterday. And we're only 107 away from being able to monetize now. So anybody who's listening to me across any platforms that haven't hopped on the TubeU yet, to click that free subscribe button. There will eventually be a paid subscribe button, but for right now, it's all free. I need 107 more people in order to be able to monetize ads. So you're absolutely wonderful for helping me out. I did not expect 40 more people. If 4 people had subscribed as a result of that, I would have been thrilled with it. The idea that 40 people did it in like 6 hours is freaking wild to me. So I appreciate all of your support, and I hope you will continue to do so. You think if I proposed to her, that'd be a better way to get her on, Justin? It might be. What if I spoke Greek to her? O tadres ke iuneka. That's the men and the women. I'm learning. I didn't accept your friend. Probably because I thought it was a bot. Probably because I thought it was a bot, CKK. Send me another friend request. I'll accept it. And I have to do this every time I speak Greek. You guys will notice that the more fluent I get, I put my hand up when I start talking Greek. Eho pino tonero. You know? So I drink the water. My lesson this morning was how to speak in the present tense. And let's just say it's hard as fuck. All the words look the same. But I'm getting there. Leave my Pinot alone. I was wondering if Pinot had anything to do with that, but I think that's French. And it's probably ignorant of me to say that, because either I'm wrong now or I was wrong then. So either way, I look like an idiot at one point. It's just a matter of at what point in the order of operations am I an idiot. Doing the weave? Why, bless your little heart, she said in a slightly sarcastic Southern drawl. Isn't that what Trump said? He's like, I do the weave because he just says nonsensical shit, but I kind of am guilty of doing the same thing. Kim says, Crowley's going to need to rethink his position on those data centers. If he doesn't, it's going to be a real issue for him, and not in a good way. Well, let's jump into that. We discussed this last night, but I did say that we were going to double down on it this morning. And shout out to Eljo, another shadow producer, who sent me this. And it seems like Jeff got the same post messaged to him here. I have not received this one, but plenty of you guys have confirmed it's real. So this is going to be a segment bashing Tom Tiffany, by the way, because while I do intend to hold David Crowley to account, I'm not willing to ignore the fact that Tom Tiffany objectively has only left this country, and by extension this state, in a significantly worse position as a result of his voting record in the House of Representatives, and will ultimately be doing similar things were he to come away with the governorship. But I do want to start here because you're exactly right. Again, if you're joining the stream late, at 10:30, I'm going to be joined by Rachel Dowling to talk about the Oshkosh meeting yesterday, where there was a moratorium. TR something similar I'm blanking in Bellevue, and that next they're going to Green Bay to do the same thing. We will be talking about all those as they get closer, but the fact is people are not on board with this. Todd is saying it sounds like Crowley is getting a lot of pressure from the unions to build those data centers. He absolutely is. It's going to be a fine line here. But so as it stands, this was sent to Eljo's sister who lives in River Falls via text. Meet data center David Crowley. David Crowley said, there is an opportunity for us to really become an AI and a data hub, not only for the entire country, but the entire globe. Even worse, he wants you to pay for it. Data center David Crowley won't roll back data center tax incentives. Our lakes run dry. Family farms are paved over. Why? Because Crowley's campaign is funded by the people building data centers. Data center David Crowley, big tech wins, Wisconsin pays. Paid for by Tiffany for Wisconsin. Now, I had Quinn on my show, who's a expert on data centers here in Northeast Wisconsin, who said Tom Tiffany's stance on family farms selling land for data centers and preventing that is a bullshit line of logic, because what if you sell your family farm to Microsoft or whomever, Nvidia, they're going to use it to build a data center. You can't pass a law that says once you legally buy somebody else's property, there's certain things that you're not allowed to do on it. That is a much more, and like specifically on farmland. You can buy any other farmland and do it, but if you buy farmland, you're not allowed, like, get the fuck out of here with that. Like, that's nonsensical. Tom Tiffany will build data centers. He is not anti-data center. He is trying to position himself on the left of this. He is going to build data centers. Here's the problem, though, and it's what I said last night. If you're listening to this show, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, when I think you guys are saying dumb shit, I absolutely let you know when you're saying dumb shit. You guys are much more informed than the average political follower. A lot of people are getting that text, and that's the entirety of their political discourse. And they're like, oh, data centers? I hate those things. I don't want anybody who's voting for data centers. You're telling me this David Crowley guy is voting for data centers? I'm not doing that. Okay, CKK saying you can pass those laws. It's called zoning restrictions. Land needs to be rezoned from agricultural to industrial or commercial use. Good to know. Still doesn't change my thoughts on the matter, but good to know. But so when you have people seeing those kind of posts and reacting the way you would expect them to, Tom Tiffany is essentially setting himself as the anti-data center candidate, even though that's not accurate. Much like Donald Trump was setting himself as the pro-affordability candidate, and now he's calling affordability a hoax. It doesn't matter once you get in the door. It matters as you are trying to get there. David Crowley is taking a 1 foot in, 1 foot out approach because he does need to placate the unions, and he does need to placate the anti-data center crowd. And what pisses me off most about all this is that the conversation about affordability is absolutely taking a back seat because they could just put this to bed and we could move on to another topic. And they'd rather we debate the shit out of this for the next 2.5 months, 76 days, I believe is the exact count, or the anti-war candidate. Exactly, Eljo. You have them going around in circles here, and it does, while I do not for a second believe that Tom Tiffany is anti-data center, that's not a made-up quote. David Crowley said he wants to be the epicenter of data centers for the globe in Wisconsin, not the country, the globe. You cannot allow local municipalities to make decisions about data centers and be the hub for the globe at the same time. That is physically impossible. One of those two things has to give. And anybody who's paying attention understands that. He needs to take a clear stance as to what the future of data center construction under him will look like, because he doesn't want to commit to anything so that he can't be called a liar. But if you remain non-committal, here's the problem with that. No offense, MAGA, but also a lot of offense, MAGA. You kind of just do what your dad president tells you to do. If you haven't seen, Donald Trump said, give me a couple weeks. I'm going to go public with my stance on data centers. And he's going to be pro-data center. And then MAGA is immediately going to become pro-data center because they do not have a capacity to think for themselves. And they are going to fall in line and vote for Tom Tiffany. And then David Crowley is going to have to reconcile with the fact that there's an entire contingency within his voting bloc that is upset about it and actually thinks for themselves. Voters get mad about it. I get it, because Republicans don't have to worry about some voting bloc that actually has principles and votes the way that they think about things. If you're still on board with Trump, on August 19th, 2026, you do not have a capacity to think for yourself. Because objectively, anything that you could have possibly voted for, unless getting them Mexicans was literally the only thing you cared about, you have nothing to hang your hat on with this presidency. That's very frustrating to a lot of liberals, that there's a leftist flank. And again, I am going to speak to liberal candidates or liberal politicians and constituents, or speak with, not to, later on this evening. And I'm going to be having this exact same conversation with them there, because I think it's important to drive a lot of these points home. And if any of you are listening, you can already plan your comments to what I am saying here, because I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And I am not representative of one man. I'm representative of a lot of people that feel this way. Always remember, because I've been taking shit from the Minocqua Brewing Substack audience here lately, I'm voting for Crowley. And more importantly, I want Crowley to win. I am warning what will happen if he does not get his shit together. That is what this is all about. All right? I'm not going to pretend I don't know what I'm looking at, but I want him to win. Yeah, Northwoods Progressive. I have that FOIA request as well. I'm sitting on it for right now. I'm waiting for the appropriate time. If that's the green light to get into that, I'd be happy to jump into that tomorrow. I don't know if they're filtering comments or not, Robin. Let's host a data center Q&A in Sherwood and try to get the message to deep red Trump cultists. I'd actually be down to do that one, CKK. You could talk me into that. I'm starting a college tour on the anniversary of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, September 10th, down at UWO, and I'm going to be talking to the young people about whether or not I cannot encourage voting for a candidate based on the event that I'm doing, but I'm not going to encourage shit. I'm going on a listening mission, the thing that Democrats should be doing all the time. But I'm going on a listening mission that I will be live streaming on at 5 p.m. on September 10th. I'll be marketing that quite a bit over the course of the next couple weeks here. And then hopefully the goal is to set something up with UW Green Bay as well that same weekend. That's the first NFL game is the 10th. I'm going to be wrapping up by then, so you don't need to worry about picking between me or football. And then hopefully I'll be at UW Green Bay later on, a couple days from there. And eventually down to the southern part of the state and bouncing all over. And I did promise Allie, if this goes well, I'm going to make my way over to Penn State too. We're going to take outside the box outside nationally, you know? So I am here for that. But here's the crazy part. The data center conversation isn't even for right now. I'm going to get into that later. What I want to talk about is the obvious albatross hanging around Tom Tiffany's neck. And that's his vote in 2025 for the big, beautiful billionaire kiss-ass bill that cut our access to healthcare. As the Wisconsin Examiner reports, Tiffany, along with all members of Congress and no Republican members of Congress and no Democrats, joined in the passage of H.R. 1, the legislation that President Donald Trump and House Republicans dubbed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. The measure made cuts to Medicaid and federal nutrition benefits over the next 10 years, along with a range of other changes to federal programs. The Medicaid changes alone have been projected to cut $900 billion to $1 trillion from the health insurance plan for people with low incomes. The legislation also extended a series of tax cuts that were passed in Trump's first term that primarily go to the wealthiest Americans. After the bill's final passage in July of 25, Tiffany issued a statement praising the outcome for, direct quote, providing tax cuts for seniors, parents, workers, and small businesses, as well as funding federal immigration agencies that have been deployed across the country and since then have murdered Americans in cold blood in the street. That part's not a quote. That part might have been a little bit of editorializing. Tiffany also said he would remain committed to protecting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid for our seniors and the most vulnerable, while rooting out waste and curbing the reckless spending that threatens future generations. In press conferences last And Tuesday, healthcare advocates said that the bill was central to their opposition to Tiffany's healthcare record. Direct quote again. When he voted for the big, beautiful bill, he essentially voted for a $1.1 trillion cut to healthcare, said Mark Pocan at a press conference on Tuesday. And that's the biggest cut that we have ever seen this country. And that's the problem here. We're not even going to see those cuts until 2027, and they planned it that way because they are trying to minimize the absolute ass beating that they are about to receive in November. You can bet your asses that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they aren't able to hide from the things that they decided with their full chest that they wanted to vote for. Here's the problem with that, though. And I made a post about this on my socials, so this chart may look familiar to a couple of you guys here. But this is debt and deficit spending by president. Those first couple of bars, this chart starts in 2015. Back when we were told that Barack Obama, our grandchildren were never going to be able to forgive Barack Obama because of all the deficit spending that he was doing back in 2015. As you can see, gray bars notwithstanding, because I do believe it was necessary spending for COVID. Very obviously, we had essentially leveled off for a couple years in a row while Republicans sat there and pissed and moaned about spending. And now in 2026, you're starting to see that debt and deficit continue to balloon. And that's not even the only chart on the matter that I have here. We're also got this bad boy to look at, wherein Trump is responsible for the better part of 30% of the entirety of the debt that we are currently operating in right now. And a lot of that, as I oftentimes relay to you guys, is brought about by the funding for never-ending war, the billionaire tax cuts that Republicans have enacted 4 times in my 38-year life, and has relatively nothing. Oh, and all of the corporate subsidy that we funnel into the oil and gas industry, data center construction and AI, making sure that Elon Musk gets to be the wealthiest person on the planet, and so many other different things. That's what where our debt and deficit stems from. You can look at debt and deficit accumulation between 1945 and 1983, that same FDR era that I oftentimes talk about, and you will notice that debt and deficit spending was not ballooning while social spending was setting records basically every single year as we were inventing program after program to make sure that a certain generation, boomers, didn't find themselves stuck in the same situation that so many of the generations before and after themselves found themselves in. Don't tell them that, though. They do tend to get mad when you highlight it. So when Tom Tiffany is talking about rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse and the necessity to save all this money, he didn't give a shit about funneling all this money into the hands of billionaires. He doesn't give a shit when billionaire companies are already receiving billions in profits, are also receiving billions in subsidies, and still continuing to jack the cost up for whatever the good or service is that they are trying to charge for you. And he most certainly doesn't give a shit about trying to stop an illegal war that's costing us between $1 and $2 billion per day that cannot be defined and, quite frankly, is a completely pointless war. If you haven't caught on to what I'm about yet, I do not care at all if Iran gets nukes. That is a red herring. They are trying to convince you that you should be scared of that, much like they said that you should be scared of North Korea getting a nuke. And when the fuck is the last time that you have thought about North Korea having a nuke since they got one? Exactly. That's not an accident. And now Donald Trump's trying to become friends with them, much like he's trying to become friends with Al-Qaeda. Much like it always plays out in society, it's a negotiating tactic. So we're dropping between $1 and $2 billion a day on data centers. On this war. Yet, if the war were not happening with every fiber of your being, and for the record, in case there are a couple MAGAs in the comments, I also said the same thing about the Biden administration when they passed a $130 billion aid package for Ukraine and Israel. I would posit to the audience, do you think if the Ukraine war were not happening, that there would have been a gung-ho push from the Democratic Party to push $100 billion into addressing homelessness and food insecurity? You bet your asses they would not be doing that. They would be telling you we got to make sure that we remain fiscally conservative. And now that conservatives are in office, they're doing the exact same thing. Do you think for a single second they would be using this money to bolster healthcare access? Because as they allow these subsidies to expire for Medicare and Medicaid and our healthcare system, they do not have a plan to make it more affordable or more accessible to the average American. And they're hoping that nobody notices this kind of thing while trying to piss the left off about data centers and other issues and Israel, Palestine, and issues that do matter, but that fundamentally Democrats and Republicans are essentially equally weak on. I got plenty of issues with Obamacare, and it did not go nearly far enough in addressing the cost of healthcare in this nation, but it sure as shit is better than, hey, what if we do nothing, which seems to be the Republican policy. Thank you, Susan. I agree. She says I'm nailing it. Anyone who wants to join the chat, I just threw it in there. Oh, is Floyd in the... Well, looks like Tim Roush is also upset about the cost of healthcare in this town as well. Okay, I fell way behind on comments here. Let's see what we got. Walt signed an executive order stopping mining in the BWCA, and Stauber is pissed, and he's taking a lot of heat for whining about it. I'm going to need to look into that more. I'm interested about that. Apparently, he also cheats at hockey. Ben, you are proposing to block data centers, but that's like trying to stop the sun from rising. Now, Brian, see what you're doing right now is liberal talking points. Anything is possible. And again, to a certain extent, yes, they are going to come, because the fact that you guys can see this and I can store outside the box on YouTube is as a result of data center access, right? So it's like I myself am guilty of this. It's a matter of having the assurances that they're not going to screw us over with these kind of things. Thank you, Robin. So voting for Crowley is like voting for Harris. I get it. That's very appropriate. All the way down to you being called a racist. At the very least, you don't get called a sexist when you talk crap on David Crowley, which is nice. Floyd says, so it turns out you're not pro-union after all. Well, Floyd, I know that you're trying to trigger me right now, so I will not allow your dumbass to do so. But what I will say is this. I have stated multiple times over that I understand why unions want the short-term gain without thinking about what's going to happen 5 years down the road, because ultimately you're voting for your own self-interest. I say that all the time. Everybody votes for their own self-interest. That's basic politics 101. The difference being it's all about compromise, and unions need to, A, recognize the long-term impact on the environment, our privacy and security, and our energy rates that need to be accounted for with the construction of these data centers. But something tells me you weren't looking for a nuanced answer. Waka waka, MAGA. You might be too stupid for this show. Joey says, we could save so much by going through the defense budget. You know that one has never been held accountable with an audit. Exactly. We could have cut the defense budget from $850 billion down to something lower, and instead Republicans are upping it to $1.5 trillion. Thank you, Violet. Ferg says, except when the data centers are built with scab labor like everything else. Well, there's going to be a lot of opposition. Like, there's going to be a lot of frustration with that as well. If that happened, that's why Democrats lose. That, in a nutshell, is why Democrats lose. And I know Yvette got mad at me last night, for anybody who wasn't on Ben After Dark, because I used school lunches as an example. But that would be another example. If Crowley wins, says, I'm not going to force data centers all over the state, and then he does, and then unions don't get to build them, it's going to be a bloodbath in 2028 in Wisconsin. And that's how it works. That's why Francesca Hong was such a popular candidate with so many people, because they're like, hey, this woman actually means what she says, and we know what we're going to get out of this when it's all said and done. And now we're going to have to go in the trust factor. And again, can't stress enough, the 4 foot 6 feet on Tom Tiffany doesn't mean business either. Seems like good marketing. Every time it falls, we think about it. Exactly. Now it's behind the couch. I'm not picking it back up right now. All knowing and all seeing. I agree. I assume you're describing myself, and I feel that way. I'm kind of like the Lord. Our union's political activism is solely based on candidate positions that benefit the union, i.e. jobs. We don't look at anything other than if the candidate policy will benefit the union members, and that makes sense. I'm not saying that I advocate for it. I'm saying that I get it because that's basic human nature. Glad you guys enjoyed that one. Jar Manny says the unions were actually protesting the data center builds in Sullivan County, Indiana, because they cut out local labor. Exactly. And we're a right-to-work state as well. And as we kind of covered in my interview on Friday, and anybody who wants an in-depth conversation about data centers with somebody who knows a lot of the nitty-gritty, the second hour of the Friday edition of Outside the Box, I believe it's called like My Discussion with Wisconsin or something like that. She goes very in depth with that, and I'd highly recommend anyone listening to me now who didn't get a chance to hear that episode, go back and listen to it if you want a much more in-depth conversation. And yes, Raul, they are temporary jobs, and like that's frustrating to me. Trust me, that's frustrating to me. And I am pro-union, much to Floyd's chagrin. Floyd just hates the working class, and he's trying to pin me in a certain way, and he just can't because I'm a slippery son of a bitch. But they are temporary jobs, and it's not a good job of seeing the forest through the trees. And it's not a good idea in terms of thinking. Again, my main gripe with hundreds of data centers going up is around data collection, surveillance, and personal security. And I don't think it fits well. Yeah, Floyd does simp for billionaires. It's sad because billionaires wouldn't even piss on him to put out his fire. But he loves those billionaires. I'll never understand it, but to each their own. Vatisha Richardson says it would be great if someone would just ask Tiffany and see what he does. I agree. Kim says, I have seen him caught off guard before on live TV with questions he's not prepared for. He stammers or gives word salad answers. It would be awesome, in my opinion. I mean, I'd love to get him on the show, but that would require balls, which I don't know that he has. He'll go on shows where people wear shirts that say Camp Auschwitz. What car do I drive? I don't drive a car, Floyd, but your dad. I was going to make your dad joke. I caught myself before I finished the joke. You guys can all infer what I was going to say there. As a nurse, I agree. Obamacare definitely didn't go far enough, but it's better than nothing. We need Medicare for all. That's kind of the agenda. And again, liberals won't say that. And I'm not calling you a liberal, Kim. But that was my issue. I tell that story all the time. Back in 2024, everyone was more interested in running on Donald Trump's threat to democracy than they were fixing healthcare beyond Obamacare. And I played a clip earlier in the week of AIPAC Shakur Hakeem Jeffries essentially saying, well, if Democrats win, what we'll guarantee you we'll do is we'll reinstate those Obamacare subsidies. And it's like, well, that already wasn't enough, man. Like, I get that that's better than nothing, but like, if that's your game plan, I feel like we're still in for a world of hurt long term. And I think that's an issue. This could get interesting. I see in my backstage, I have my first guest of the day here, Mr. Fremont.
How you doing? I had to pull over on that one.
Wonderful. What's on your mind?
Well, yes, stopping data centers is a big deal. All right, for you, but it's not going to happen because Crowley can't win on that. So maybe just trying to adopt them with closed loop systems, because you did have a friend you did have a guest on a little while ago who had talked about closed loop systems as being bad, but just about every other industry has closed loop systems for cooling. So
well, it's not a matter of the system; it's a matter of the pollutants that go into it, according to her description.
But every single like large scale industrial situation use closed loop systems for cooling. I've worked on them many times. You know, it's part of the game. But I think what he needs to do is stop the NDAs. All right, make sure that everybody knows what they're dealing with. Stop the backdoor deals through the county or through the state or through, and just adopt rules that make more sense that will get him elected. Because if he loses, he was backed by the unions. He is backed by the unions. And if he dumps data centers, he's never going to get the union vote. So
yeah, but it's the proverbial, compromise to get what you want, right? Like Hong was the moratorium candidate. Crowley was the I want to become the epicenter candidate. You got to find somewhere between those two that satiates a large enough chunk of the population. And I think you got to put in writing that union labor is going to get all those jobs.
Exactly.
I think that's probably the best path forward. But he's just got to. Tiffany is setting the standard right now. Like they're calling him data center David Crowley. And you're here every day. You follow politics all day. You know your shit. You know as well as I do. On your work sites, what kind of idiocy do you hear every single day?
Well, if they say there's a moratorium on data centers, Crowley's not going to get the union vote. They'll go to Tiffany.
No, they're saying the opposite. They're calling him data center David Crowley. They're saying he's going to build them everywhere. That's how they're phrasing it, and they're saying that as a negative.
Well, not on job sites. Job sites, that's a good thing. On job sites, that's a good thing.
I hear you.
It's
an interesting one.
It's the same deal as when Scott Walker ran. All right, Scott Walker made promises to fire, to police. He made offers to the engineers local, the heavy equipment local, which gave him enough support to pass through Act 10. All right. Well, look how much Act 10 is doing. How much good Act 10 is doing for the unions right now. It's not. Yeah. But they're selling the short term, and not looking at the long term. I do believe that these data centers are going to be brownfields, just like these large, how do you say it? Those large warehouses that people are in Neenah, they're trying to get their taxes reduced because the buildings are old and they're not, they're paying high taxes on. I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to be obsolete in 5-10 years. But right now, they're putting them in everywhere. And it's good work. It's good work. My son's working on one right now in Port Washington.
No, exactly. I in Pennsylvania, when they discovered the Marcellus Shale, back when I graduated from college, I had friends of mine that in 2010, with no experience, were making over 60 grand, which went a lot further back then. Right out of college, freaking, fracking, digging up areas, finding titles, trying to find the best ways. There was some environmental impact from that, but in the moment, in the middle of a recession, when nobody was making any money and everybody was trying to find a way to pay off their student debt, those jobs showed up. People didn't give a shit about what Pennsylvania was going to look like in 2018. They were like, in 2010, I need money, and they were jumping on it. And you got on, like, not you, the royal you, have to understand, like, people are wired that way. I don't begrudge anybody thinking that way, even though I'm not in agreement with the attitude in this, because I'm not benefiting from it. But I get it.
Right. I think just to pull it all together, I think if Crowley adopts the attitude that data centers are going to happen, Tiffany's going to put them in, but let's regulate them. Let's make sure that they're built with a closed loop system. Let's make sure that they do have power plants, that they're providing their own power and not polluting, that they have the pollution control devices on them, and adapt hey, listen, they're going to happen. I'll make sure they happen the right way, with input from the locals, with input from the state. And because, Tiffany is gonna hide behind the fact that he's not going to put them in, but he's going to put them in. But it's going to be wide open. It'll be the Wild West. So I think
it's a bit of a race to see if Crowley wins, the data centers are going to go in rural areas, and if Tiffany wins, the data centers are going to go in Milwaukee, Dane, and the Fox Valley and Green Bay. And I feel like that's what this race is all about at this point.
Yeah. Well, they were building them back 15 years ago, cloud storage. They always put them close to areas that they could get cheap power. And that's what they're looking for now. Transmission lines, cheap power. And I just think you're not going to stop them, but you got to regulate them. And I think Crowley's, if he adopts that, I think he's going to win, hands down. But if he says no data centers, he's going to lose out. He's going to lose a lot of votes. Sorry to say. There's a lot of working people that depend on
centers is in the cards, and if it sounded like I was I would prefer that, but I don't think that's happening.
Right.
I don't think that's even. I just want him to get more specific about what it's going to look like here.
Yeah.
Because Oshkosh just said F the data centers. So if Crowley wants to build a bunch, well, that's one location now of many. That's just like nah. So. Yeah. We'll see what ultimately ends up happening here, but I'm glad. I was expecting to get yelled at, so I'm glad because I was
no. Hey, make sure the Democrats understand that they got to have something to run on. We have to have a platform. You can't just expect that. So make sure you give them an asshole today. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, buddy.
Take care.
Easy. Brian from Fremont, everybody. Brian from Fremont. Thank you for your time and attention on this matter. Let's see, what have we got here? Crazy how union workers are literal dog shit. Alex, you're great. By the way, congratulations on the new job. But she called them dog shit human beings in this state. He ain't wrong about being part of it. Oh, no, exactly. Governor Abbott has publicly backed off of support for data centers for now. Don't trust him 1 micron on this. For scabs, it's good for scabs. CKK says, I literally asked at our union meeting Monday night what job guarantees at these data centers we would be getting back. We would get for backing Crowley. Did you get crickets? As a union, we are hoping for mini nuke plants at data centers. Yeah. Raul says the current regime doesn't regulate shit. They get paid not to regulate any corporation. Cheap power, aka poor rural areas. DJ Benza says, let's completely fuck our environment and water for something that's only going to be here for 10 years because we want jobs now. Solidarity forever. I get it. Justin, you're going to get me in trouble with these comments, but I feel you, bud. If people were wise and cared about carefully spending their dollars, we absolutely could. I will not stand for being called dog shit. I am horse shit, says CKK. Jim says, the chats, and I'm going to hop over on, wait, what's this? It's relatively easy to stop the data centers from being built, especially if you have the executive power. Oh, absolutely, Carlos. But do you think that Crowley can win without union support? Do you think that the anti-data center crowd will be enough to counter the loss of support? Because promises were clearly made, right? Like, I have no proof of this, but Evers met with Crowley behind closed doors and was like, I need these concessions out of you, and if you give me these concessions, you've got my endorsement going forward. Can he still pull it off with losing all of that? I don't know. I'd like to think he could, but I don't know. All right, I'm going to catch up on some TikTok chat here. The environment is a huge issue for me. We're hitting record highs. Data centers are not inevitable. We need to keep the pressure on. Don't give in. I mean, that's kind of my attitude. Although even Wisconsin came on and said, and she is vehemently anti-data center, there are a need for them in the tech sector that we are in. We don't need them for AI that we all fucking hate. We don't need them for surveilling us. We don't need them there so that we have storage centers accumulating countless amounts of data about us. We don't need all of those, but there are elements of this, given how online so many of the people who listen to me are. There is an element of unavoidability with this within the work sphere or social sphere that we have. How many of you listening to me right now scroll social media? Most of you are listening to me on some version of social media because I kind of count YouTube as that as well. No data centers, no social media. Not the end of the world for me. Well, technically the end of my career because I don't have any other way to get my message out there right now. But from a social perspective, I don't give a shit. I actually am reprimanded all the time by people close to me because I am not on these apps enough in a social capacity. I'm not interacting with other people's shit because I'm not a passive scroller. If this stuff all disappeared tomorrow, I wouldn't care outside of I need it for these purposes unless I actually want to go and find another FCC job, but I don't know that I ever want to do that again. I literally haven't even sent out a resume. I'm just making this working for myself thing work. That's kind of the game plan. Have I mentioned subscribe to my Tube of You channel, my TikTok, and my Facebook account, and eventually my Twitch. I actually do have a Ben Cominos Twitch channel right now. I just don't use it yet. If we have to regulate them, we need serious regulations. Kristen says, regulate, make them pay, and get legislation that requires public forum and local control. Now we're talking. He already has the Democratic vote in his pocket, but the union vote's another thing. And like, I think it would be better if he embraced it. I realize because Brian's a union man himself, so he is looking at it from a union perspective, and I get that. But I think you're right to an extent. By the way, Carlos, what do people call you when you talk shit on Crowley? Because I've been getting called racist a lot the last week, and I'm always sitting there. I'm like, I'm wondering if people just listen to Carlos. They're like, well, I can't use the one card I have against him. He's just making a lot of good points, and I'll look like a fool. But that's what my life's been like the last 8 days, 9 days, however the fuck long it's been, which has been a lot to take in. Thanks, Susan. I'm trying to be my own boss. So what percent of voting Wisconsinites is unions? Is that a whopping 20 to 30% of the state that is them when majority is against? Yeah, I feel that. The union slander makes me uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie, but I do get the frustration for what it's worth. If the union members stay home, Crowley's data center's stance won't matter. We vote in far higher numbers than the general population, says Jeff. Jim says union membership is down to 3 to 6%, most of which are still public unions. I don't believe that will make or break Crowley. So we got a lot of opinions out there. Ferg saying, yeah, you're so racist that you didn't want the black guy, but you wanted the Asian woman instead. Exactly. What's up, Canary? Raul says, I don't see union members not voting. I also think the elephant in the room is that not all union members vote Democratic. I think that also needs to be discussed in this matter as well. Facebook's popping off today as well. Sorry, the environment isn't a game. Ask Marionette dealing with PFAS. Well, I remember in 2014, IUOE endorsed Walker. Why are we always beholden to unions? Always. They have had to bend sometimes too. And I like unions. D says, gee, why don't we give Elon even more of our tax dollars so he can build data centers in space? Don't fucking say that out loud, D. They will do that. They will give him our money. What? He became a trillionaire? Give him our money. Harambe. Too soon. I tried being my own boss. That guy was a moron. Yeah, okay. I walk into it sometimes. How are they going to get water in space? Space ice, Eljo. Space ice. I made that up, by the way. Union members are 6.4% of the Wisconsin workforce. How many points swing Wisconsin elections? It depends, right? It depends because the Supreme Court elections have been 10-point margins, right? But the last governor margin, what was it? 53-47 against Tim Michaels. And granted, Tom Tiffany is also an election denier, although he's trying to distance himself from those claims a little bit. It was about a 6-point swing, so you'd be playing with fire. But again, how many diehard hotties for Hong are sitting out because he's too pro data center? Like, there's so many factors that need to be considered here. That's why a compromise that leaves everyone casually pissed off, unions still making money, and gives local areas a decent amount of control over the actual data accumulation, the rates. You need to handle the economics of all of it and be like, you mother hubbards are handling all of this bullshit. And the best part is, it's just like anything else. I can use my home state as an example. In the late 2000s and early 10s, we had a conservative mayor. Ravenstall was his name. If you look, one of the players in The Dark Knight Rises, when they blow up the football stadium, has Ravenstall as his last name on the jersey. That was the last name of our Republican mayor. I kind of hate that that's in that movie. But he essentially did a thing where he eliminated all taxes that go along with filming movies and TV shows in Pittsburgh. And we had a shit ton of movies and TV shows being filmed in Pittsburgh. And in true Republican fashion, they were like, and these tax cuts are going to lead to economic development. None of that bullshit happened, because it turns out that when you have to close all of the streets in downtown Pittsburgh to do a chase scene with the Batmobile, nobody is able to go to the coffee shops down there and buy coffee. So the handful of coffees that are being bought by the film crew really don't make up for the loss of business from so many people not being able to park their car near the establishment they want to go to. And it ended up being not the boon that we were promised, but I'm an extra in a lot of movies, which is really cool. So, like, pros and cons, I suppose. And what is the Republican talking point, all this stuff? Well, if we don't give the tax incentives, then other states will give the tax incentives, and people are going to take their business there. That was the threat against Mamdani, right? If he ends up taxing billionaires, they're not going to stick around in New York anymore, and they're going to take their business elsewhere. Now, never mind the fact that that all turned out to be a crock of shit in New York, because New York has an extra appeal to it. You know, you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, yada, yada, yada. But so why wouldn't data centers be funneled into the same group then, right? Here's some Democratic messaging. Hey, Democrats, any of you guys listening right now? Remove the tax incentive. Allow Tennessee to offer great boons to the data centers that want to build there. We'll let you gouge the shit out of our citizens. Bring your data centers down here and build them down here. Great. Then all the business is going to go somewhere else for a lot of these buildings. That's how you message this. We're going to do these things, and then hold the Republicans' feet to the fire. Be like, will you subsidize these mother hubbards? Because you always subsidize these mother hubbards. So you know what the answer is going to be. And then go from there. Yeah, I started on Nixon Blue Canary. Catch the replay of the show anytime on the Tuba U. And everybody, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. We need 107 more subscribers to monetize. Our food supply is going to suffer as the climate changes. We're just speeding up the process. Realistically, Violet, the number one thing businesses should be investing in is figuring out how to grow food in deserts. Like, that should be where all of the AI money is going. If Crowley changes his tune and goes anti-data center, then the union votes Republican. That want unions gone? That was a question. I think, or at least they stay home, right? Carlos says the Democrats should be focused on expanding the electorate, but they never do that. Well, yeah, God, tale as old as time there. Building more shit we don't need isn't progress. I hate it here. You sound like Tyler Durden. Because their donor base is the same as Republicans. Well, that I feel. Kentucky just turned down $26 million from a data center company. The public isn't beholden to unions, but we don't vote largely as a bloc. LOL. Lindell says there were irregularities in the primary. He lost. So the okay. Ali says, no. Why would they do the easy thing, Ben? It's got to be nothing for citizens first, and then the concept of giving citizens power, right? Left Wing Gorilla says, does anything else matter in this election besides data centers? Yes, affordability, being anti-war, being able to get into a home, expanding Badger Care, developing a universal child care program. There are a lot of things, and the Democrats are partially in favor of that, but here's the deal. Here's the unspoken truth, Gorilla. I think a lot of people know that both houses of the legislature aren't going to flip. Maybe they do, and then we're having a different conversation. But in a world where Republicans control the assembly, Democrats control the Senate and the governorship, childcare will be blocked. Affordable housing will be blocked. All of the obviously good shit will be blocked, and only one thing is going to get through. You want to guess what that one thing is? School vouchers were another big deal. Rick says people don't always understand. There are public unions, manufacturers, and building trades. We in the building trades are still powerful. Nobody's denying the power of that. I'm saying there are a lot of components to consider in this matter, and everybody's kind of measuring their own value right now. And I'm saying this is exactly what the ruling class wants. First of all, different segments of the working class arguing against themselves, which is why I'm really trying to tamp down the anti-union rhetoric coming from some people, because that doesn't help. If you are dependent on getting paid for your life to work, you are working class. If you make $140,000 a year, but if you miss 3 paychecks, your life is in a world of hurt, you are working class. If you are in a trade, you are working class. Arguing amongst these different factions within the working class is not the best path forward. And again, we're a couple minutes away, assuming we don't have any technical difficulties. Let me check my emails to make sure I didn't get any updates. I did not. Did the email I sent send? Good. Okay. We will be joined by Rachel Dowling in just a few moments to talk about the moratorium in Oshkosh that has been enacted. But we have to be able to coalesce around this. And I can't stress enough, Tom Tiffany is worse by every conceivable metric, but people don't look at it. I saw people, if there were a way, do I have it up on, can I get into it let me check my Substack here really quick and see if I can read it. No, I'm not logged in, son of a bitch. All right. One person sent me an all caps message that was like 9 paragraphs long about the article I wrote for the Minocqua Brewing Company Substack on Tuesday. They were like, it looks like people did. Rather than trying to give you a reason to show up and vote for them. The Tiffany campaign is positioning Tom Tiffany to the left of Democrats. I see you there, Rachel. I'll bring you up in a second. To the left of Democrats, because the Republican Party is catching up to exactly how popular or non-popular this concept is. And Democrats are saying, shut up. Don't worry. We got it under control. Just show up and vote for us. And it's not going to work. Rachel, I see you messing with your camera there a little bit. You're cutting off the top of your head. Can you move it up a little bit or no? There we go. There we go. Now we can see your eyes. All right, I'm bringing you up now. Hello, how are you today?
Hey, Ben, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. It was kind of last minute here, and shout out to TJ. They are wonderful. I was seriously, it was 8:58 and I go live at 9, and I was sitting there like no one had a story about it on Google yet. I knew about this 12 hours ago, and I was like, there's no information about what happened. So I'm glad you were here. You're here and able to jump into it with us here a little bit. And you and I have a little bit of overlap. We met at at an anti-flock meeting, and obviously we're both in sync on that as well. And these data center conversations go hand in hand, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. They definitely go hand in hand, and this is not a left or right issue. This is just flock cameras, invasion of privacy, data centers, invasion of privacy, invasion of our rights and our resources.
Yeah, you and I most certainly don't agree on everything, but that's kind of the point of this show and especially this conversation, because this is one of those topics that, let's say, hypothetically, you wanted to win an election. This is one of those things that kind of brings people together across a number of other disagreements here. So set the stage for us here. How crowded was it yesterday? What was the general vibe? Tell us what the experience was, and then we'll get into what vote was there and what it kind of allows for. But what did it look like?
Sure. Actually, yesterday was really calm and quiet, which I was not expecting at all. Compared to beforehand, the Winnebago County Board held public hearings about the data center moratorium, and that was a crowded room. Last night, we probably had 3 people who showed up to speak out against that. But I think part of the issue is that the county setting a moratorium only really applies to 4 of our unincorporated towns and villages. So this doesn't cover Neenah, this doesn't cover Menasha, this doesn't cover Amro, it doesn't cover Oshkosh. So all of these cities need their own data center moratorium.
Yeah, and it seems as though I had some people in the chat when I first announced that you might be coming on, and they said, what was it, Bellevue ended up passing one. It looks like the next conversation is going to be in Green Bay, but it's just a matter of awareness and people continuing to show up, because by and large, I'm sure you're aware of the Wrightstown vote on primary day that basically went 90% against.
Yes.
Which is kind of wild to see there. So what actually, in the areas where the moratorium has been enacted, how exactly does that work? Because it's not a blanket moratorium. So what was actually voted on yesterday?
Sure. So the resolution specifically had to do with new construction and buying property for the intent of building a data center. It doesn't cover the data centers that we already have in our community. So things like hospitals or different businesses that have giant server rooms in their facilities, those are essentially grandfathered in. So this only covers new construction, and it's just a temporary pause, which I need to stress very much. We're doing this hoping that the state will take over and say something later. But with election season, we're already seeing issues with that. People who are accepting PAC funds, their votes go where the money is.
Yeah, and for the record, Rachel is running for the state assembly, I believe, as a libertarian in the 53rd district. Is that right?
I'm actually running as an independent. So
I apologize.
Yep. No, that's okay. I just believe that good ideas can come from any party, and it's not the time to pick a side. We just need to pick the people.
Yeah, and I think you highlight there. So you kind of got into the next question that I was going to ask there then. So what is the expectation surrounding the next 12 months from the people? Are there going to be more meetings? Are we talking they're coming in a year and we're debating community engagement? Are they talking energy costs and what the subsidy or lack thereof is going to look like? What are they ultimately hoping that will take place in the next 12 months?
Sure. I think for the county, what we're hoping for is just regulation for our resources. Winnebago County has one of the largest lakes in the state of Wisconsin. I mean, aside from the Great Lakes. Okay. But our lake resources are so valuable. Our land is so valuable. That cannot happen. And I don't know if you know this, but the lake Winnebago is one of the largest breeding grounds for sturgeon in the entire world. So there's a lot more at stake here than just our resources for people. We have animals that are at risk too. So I hope that something will be regulated or at least legislated from the Winnebago County Board to keep and protect our natural resources.
Does your status, this might let me know if you don't have an answer to this, but as an independent, are you in any contact with other people maybe affiliated with one party or the other? Are you getting any vibe? Are local representatives catching up to this? I don't know if you've been listening at all, but I've spent the better part of the last hour talking about the Tom Tiffany text that went out that essentially calls him data center David Crowley. And then, of course, you got Tom Tiffany, who really isn't committing in any kind of meaningful way to stopping this either, outside of apparently making it illegal for farmers to sell their farmland and then put data centers on it. I don't understand the logic there. But are you getting any kind of indication? You said we got 12 months here, but realistically, it seems like it's quite a bit of a holding pattern right now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a holding pattern. I think part of the reason they're doing that is they're using it as an election day tactic to get people out to vote. And my stance on that would be our community and our resources should never be used as an election tactic. That makes me sick. We need to make good decisions now moving forward. Waiting until November is not acceptable, in my opinion. We need to handle this now. The other thing that really concerns me about all of the candidates is a lot of people are saying, well, we just need these data centers to pay their share. That doesn't help when they're on the same electrical grid as I am. Because paying their share, yeah, they might be paying their electrical bill, but now I'm competing with them on the grid for electricity cost and usage. I get charged for that. And I'm seeing that locally where I live in Minocqua. We have a data center that's connected to our grid right now. It's been running for a few years, and our electric and water bill has just about doubled over the last year because of them. So
Yeah.
making the data centers pay their share doesn't help because my rate goes up.
Right. No, exactly. And that's obviously a concern to a lot of people as well. I'm still hung up on the I don't know if you know this, Rachel, but you're running for office right now, and you're saying you're taking a very, very public issue that you could use as a cudgel to get people to show up and want to address it beforehand. What are you doing? Putting the people first or something? How am I supposed to react to that?
Well, I did do a little bit of arts and crafts time for yesterday, and I made fans for everybody.
There you go.
Yeah, and I don't think that this stance is necessarily going to win me the election or get me votes or anything. That's not the point. I'm literally doing this for my kids. I'm doing this for my electric bill. We can't keep paying stuff like this. This isn't a cost that we were expecting.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I oftentimes highlight. They've been getting built for the better part of a half decade, and people have only woken up to it, much like with Flock. They kind of woken up to it in the last 12 months. People say, well, what's the big deal? They were here. It's like, right, well, I wasn't paying attention then. I'm paying attention now, and I'm frustrated. And we need to see that reflected. Sounds like you're willing to do so there. Is there anything else about that meeting, or maybe next steps that people should be aware of in terms of, at least whether it be for Oshkosh or a different location, maybe?
Yeah, actually. So now that the data center moratorium was passed by the Winnebago County Board, I would urge all of our other city, town, and village officials to take that template and just put your city's name on it. It's already written. Our corporation counsel, so our lawyer for the county, has already vetted it, and it needs to get brought to all of our other cities. And I think it could really translate to any county, any city at this point with how it's written.
Are you going to be at the Neenah Public Library tomorrow for the Flock discussion?
I'm going to try my hardest. I just found out about that today. I'm on a different nonprofit board, and our meeting is literally at the exact same time. So I am going to show up a little bit before, because I do have a resolution I wrote for Flock cameras. It's not a perfect fit. The Winnebago County Board right now is GOP controlled. So the resolution is written for something that I think they would tolerate. I haven't shown it to anyone yet. I haven't emailed it to anyone yet, but it does need to be discussed. There was a very strange comment made last night at the county board by our vice chairman, saying that he doesn't want any discussion about Flock anywhere on the Winnebago County Board, because he thinks that myself and then another supervisor who's also running for state assembly would use this as an election tactic. I call BS, because last night I was allowed to vote on the data center moratorium. So how is a data center, me being allowed to vote on a data center moratorium, any different than me being allowed to discuss or vote on a Flock camera restrictions or getting rid of that?
Right. I mean, that's what that says to me. Like, obviously, I'm not in the guy's head, but I think he knows where the public opinion lays on it, and I think he knows how that looks long term. And where you stand on it is probably more in line with what the people want to see, which is pretty telling in and of itself there. Very interesting. Rachel, I'd love to have you on in a more official capacity, and we can jump into the campaign a little bit more in depth at that time. But I appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day and just kind of laying this stuff out here for us. I think it's great information. And again, I still don't think anything is actually out there yet. So this is the only information that's available in the news sphere on Oshkosh right now. So thank you very much.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Yeah, of course. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Awesome stuff there. And like it's people like Rachel, and again, I barely know her. You know what I mean? It's not like we're friendly. Obviously, we've hung out a couple times. A whole mess of us went out and got drinks after one of the flock meetings, and so we all kind of got to know each other that time. I did a Ben After Dark there with my friend Meg. A couple of you guys ended up seeing that one. But it's a very interesting conversation. And again, the fact that they don't even like it, just to tie the flock camera conversation into it, they don't even want to have the discussion because they know it's unpopular and they might end up taking a beating as a result of it. What's up, Larry? Glad you're here. It's not unusual. They know. Again, David Crowley knows. Tom Tiffany knows. The Winnebago County Board knows. Everybody knows where the public stands by and large. Not everybody feels that way. Enough people feel that way for it to be taken seriously. I still maintain if Wisconsin had closed primaries like Florida does, the Angie Nixon race would be more reflective of the governor's race here in Wisconsin. I hope the data comes out someday that proves that a bunch of Republicans showed up and voted for David Crowley, because I'm convinced that's the case. My mortgage is housed in Oshkosh. End data centers and destroy the backups. I feel that. Mickey liked what she heard there. Good to know. They will pollute it most likely. Once the environment is destroyed, we can't just get it back. Oh, no, absolutely. That's why I said I'm not a parent. If we are going to vote to destroy the environment, cool. If we're going to vote to save the environment, cool. I'm here for either one of those, but none of this wishy-washy bullshit thing. Don't tell me we got to drink out of paper straws and also here's 15 new data centers this month for you. We're not doing both. Donald Trump literally signed an executive order to remove the cap on the amount of sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide that data centers are allowed to pump into our ecosystem. You don't pass that executive order if you're not intending to pump a fuck ton of sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. So, like, what are we doing here, guys? I'm looking at you now, liberals. I expect the Republicans to destroy the environment because they hate the environment. I'm joking to Republicans listening, but I expect it. My entire life, they've been pro-fracking, pro-mining, anti-ozone, cut down the trees. Every single time it's a question of business or the environment. For my entire 38 years of existence, Republicans pick the business. Democrats, you're the ones cosplaying as the environmental people. And then you get mad when people say, I thought you were the environmental people. That's not going to cut it anymore. I'm doing a better job of keeping up with the Facebook comments. Do I think that Democrats still have the union votes? I've seen many members in trades and teaching, and none of them vote Democrat. It's a different attitude compared to the boomer Gen X that I grew up in. I do know a couple of teachers. I ran into a teacher at Mile of Music that said, I moved here from a different place, and I'm a teacher. I'm a special ed teacher, and I vote Republican. And I'm like, well, okay. I guess that's a decision. I am proud to say I have never been a member of any political party. If it had been a closed vote, you wouldn't have been able to vote for Hong. Right on. Oh, shit. Somebody. I can vouch for one Republican. My son, he crossed over and voted for Crowley, and I'm pretty certain several of his friends did too. I'm telling you, in a closed primary state, Francesca Hong beats the shit out of David Crowley. Republicans put us in this situation, and now Democratic establishment are telling us to play ball. Did you see the report yesterday about fake polling companies? I saw the report. I didn't get a chance to read it yet. The union endorsements don't mean members will vote for the candidate. Oh, I feel that. I have to care about my children's future, said Miss J. I agree. I would like to care for your children's future, too. I just wish there were a political party that did. I just found out that there's a small data center for Comcast in the town next door. I think Rantony is listening in Jersey. And Harambe out in California, I believe, says NASA also intends to intentionally crash the satellite that tracks emissions. Is that real? Raul says he's glad he didn't breathe. You and me both. I mean, I'm glad I didn't breathe, not I'm glad you didn't breathe. I didn't want that to sound rude. Whoops. Should have phrased that better. Sounds like that fake poll had little reach in Wisconsin and closely matched other polls or something like that. I haven't had time to look at it. I'm just going to live in my conspiracy-addled mind where it seems very obvious to me that Republicans exploited a lack of competition within their own primary and a uniquely popular candidate in Wisconsin, which stinks. Oh, you're making clips here, Allie? That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But so shout out again, Rachel Dowling. She's in the what was it, 53rd? Yeah, 53rd Assembly District, County Board Supervisor in Winnebago County, and a community advocate, based in Menasha, Wisconsin. That's Rachel Dowling. What was that? What was that? Who wants to talk to me right now? Does this seem like the time nor the place? We're good there. What's that say? Jared, I found it in the LA Times. Did NYT do the article also? Yeah, it was an NYT, a failing New York Times article, was how it was described to me. Kim, it's okay. We all have Republicans in our life. My dad's a Republican, but I still love him. They intend on terminating OCO2 and OCO3 satellites despite being in excellent condition. Man, you know, I did an episode 2 days ago where it feels like America's making the wrong decision at every turn. And this isn't like exclusively a Trump thing, but it really is highlighted as a result of it being a Trump thing. That's just another one, man. I don't know. I don't know where we're headed on the other side of all this. And boy, howdy, would it be nice if we had somebody just as extreme on the left as what MAGA represents on the right. That would be really fun, because it looks to me like they're going to paint David Crowley as an extremist despite being the most boring man on the planet. So you may as well just run an actual fucking extremist and see how many people care about your goddamn Thanksgiving tweets. But it's probably not going to happen. No, I appreciate that, Eljo. I'll give that a read when I get off the air. Don't worry about it. I wasn't being it sounded like I was being passive-aggressive, but I wasn't being passive-aggressive. We got cancer MMA vaccines through, really? I haven't heard that either. I'm falling behind. I need to start reading more stuff again. I'm busy doing tech stuff and boxing up things and getting ready to move and buying things, not online, of course. But it really does suck going to different stores to find all the stuff. Yeah, I feel that. Crowley's a dullard for show, as well as a flip-flopping sellout, in my opinion, says Raul. I don't know. Again, I'm going to an event this evening, and anybody Facebook message me. You can use my email, bencominos@gmail.com. I also officially have my real official email up, which is just going to be ben@bencominos.com, and you can send that there as well. Anything you guys would want me to say. I don't know how much time I'm going to have to speak or how well attended it's going to be, but I'm going to have a couple of local elected officials and member of the Democratic establishment in front of me at 7 p.m. today. So realistically, just like feed me shit, and I'll try and get as many answers as I can. Obviously, we'll be discussing it in the 9 o'clock hour of tomorrow's show. Malia will be joining us for our foreign policy hour in the 10 o'clock hour, but we'll be spending the better part of the first hour, assuming anything of value comes of that meeting, It might be 5 minutes of that meeting, and then we'll just do news otherwise. I don't want to overcommit to anything. So we'll see what ultimately ends up happening there. So you're just not embracing technology. No, Violet, I'm not giving Jeff Bezos any money. It's a flex. Union Carbide, West WV, ExxonMobil, Baytown Refinery, 3 Mile Island. Trust us on this one, though. Yeah, it's a good point, Moondog. Lack of regulation based on the lack of true knowledge on the disease itself. Very profound, Justin. You want to know what's crazy? This is not an endorsement. He's very far off on foreign policy. Josh Shapiro has signed bombs in the past going to a certain location. So this is not me endorsing him. But this is what my home state gets to do while we're here sitting here. And by the way, Pennsylvania, very big union state as well. Give us a listen.
Effective immediately, I am removing all data center projects from the fast track permitting program. And this executive order makes any future data center project ineligible for fast track. One thing that has become abundantly clear to me from listening to Pennsylvanians is that while fast track permitting has proven to be an incredible asset to helping us land major economic development projects like Eli Lilly in the Lehigh Valley and the Bellwether District in Philadelphia that is seeing rapid growth. What's become clear to me is that it is not right for these kinds of data center developments.
Must suck to have your governor be able to so succinctly lay out exactly how he feels about the matter. That must just be awful for that to be the case. And Josh Shapiro sucks. Again, Josh Shapiro sucks. But that's a very good stance. And again, I asked the question, why does it take California several billions of dollars in multiple years to build like 1.5 miles of high-speed rail that more than 60% of Americans want, but then less than 30% of Americans want data centers? And we're not doing environmental studies. We're not doing economic studies. We're not bringing in experts. Build. It's gotta bring up a question for anybody paying attention. Why does it take government forever to do anything, but this one topic seems to be streamlined in a way that is unavoidable? Isn't he also pro school voucher, Ali, or am I mishearing that? I thought my state already has approved school vouchers in very awful ways. And by the way, I meant to do a story today. ProPublica has a story out right now about data centers, or excuse me, schools in Wisconsin where every student is on school vouchers. It's a private school, and every single student is on school vouchers. On school vouchers. Public dollars going to every student at a private institution with no accountability for performance. But Ali does say that outside of the bombs, he's actually not a bad candidate. And to be frank, he is Jewish, so it's hard. So I fear I don't know how to even bring the subject up around here. Easy. You establish your support for Bernie Sanders, and then you go on to talk about how genocide is bad. That's the go-to answer. Okay, he thought it would work and was pretty open about it, but then listened and didn't do it. Okay, good. I agree. Data centers get the green light because at this point, I'm convinced it's for total mass surveillance future plans. I agree. Robots are impressive. Less cops getting hurt. Pre-crime AI, flock policing, RIP USA. That's kind of my attitude as well, man. And we'll be labeled as conspiracy theorists now. And then when it turns out we were right, everyone will look at you and tell you that they thought that before you did. That's the inevitable reality of thinking this way. Ben, you probably know this one. Coal mine fire in Central PA has been burning since 1962. They can't stop it, so it's estimated to burn for 250 more years across 3,700 acres. People are warned about going near it. No, I'm familiar. I'm absolutely familiar. But so that's what my state's doing. Waka Waka, Wisconsin. What are you guys doing? Slugs for salt. Wasn't that the inspiration for the tire fire in The Simpsons? The fire that's always burning? Isn't that where they got that idea from? No, no, Allie. I don't hang out in Pennsylvania. Hit me with it phonetically. Also, those Mother Hubbards in Pennsylvania pronounce it North Versailles. So, like, the idea that they say anything right is laughable. Shit, I had a Pittsburgh friend of mine who's a libertarian Trump voter. He was like, "Yeah, this situation needs fixed." I'm like, "Ah, you Pittsburgh trash." You trash. Needs fixed. Just leaving words out. Don't get me wrong. We all know what is meant when you say Centralia. Centralia. Hijo Pino Novero. Well, that was fun. Play Ghost Recon Breakpoint. It's set on a tech oligarchy island with drone warfare. It's creepy AF. I'm telling you, it's coming faster than we think. And again, it's like I say with the media, it's more about what they're not talking about than what they are talking about. Why aren't we talking about governmentally affordability more than we are talking about getting this shit up? Crime is trending downward year over year. There was a massive spike in 2020 because of COVID. It hovered there for like another year and a half. And if you look at crime since like 1965, it's just basically a straight line going downward. And yet politicians across the aisle are telling you that flock cameras and data centers are more important right now than healthcare and food access. And it's not even that they have to say it. It's that they're not talking about the other shit. I always try to remain cognizant of that, although I do feel like I have been caught in a circular rhythm here surrounding surveillance and this kind of technology because I do think it matters. But like, my main thrust is affordability, is a broken status quo economically for the majority of Americans, especially the majority of Americans under the age of 50, and that addressing those shortcomings is what ultimately is going to fix society. And yet our politicians would rather make never-ending war, whether it be in Ukraine, Palestine, Iran, or eventually China, and having all of us on camera all the time so we know exactly when somebody says something negative about our dear sweet government seems to be much more at the forefront of their mind. There is no data to back up the claim that we need more surveillance right now. What's up, man? There needs to be some semblance of a dose of reality. And this is why it's so nice that so many normal people are starting to run for office, and more importantly, that they're winning. It sucks that we don't get that. It sucks real bad. But it's cool to see it happening in a lot of other places. And as long as it happens in enough places that we can stop this on a certain level. And unfortunately, it's going to mean that we put in the elbow grease then, because they will just pass this shit. It was an epiphany I had at the Appleton Town Hall about a month ago. Had nobody showed up, there would be flock cameras all over Appleton right now. It's because so many people showed up, so many people got pissed, and the people in local office who make good livings doing what they do realize if they want to stay in that position, you better reflect the will of the people. And the only way you let the will of the people know what they are is by showing up. And what sucks is in gerrymandered counties and district and municipalities, they know that they can piss off the small subsect of people showing up getting mad about it because they're coming to trans your kids. And you're stupid as fuck for thinking that. And I hope you know that. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. That's going to be where we end the show on for today. Please do subscribe to Outside the Box on the Tube of You, on the Book of Faces, on the TikTok. We had a great subscription day yesterday. A ton of you shared my post asking for people to subscribe to the channel. We gained like 40 new people. We need 107 more for me. And that's actually as of, let me see, I haven't even checked today. Hold on. While we're here, we may as well, right? Ben Cominos. There he is. 894. Okay, we got one more while I was talking. So we need 106 now in order to monetize this thing. So if anybody can push this stuff, I would appreciate it very much. Eljo, do I have to make my Facebook page a professional page in order for you to be able to share my posts? Because if you guys could push that out over SOL, that would probably go a long way, and I'd appreciate any help I could get on that front. That would be very nice. Raul says, stay safe, fuckers. And everyone should do what Ali is a dog mom says as well, says Jarmani. You should. Not in life, but in the chat. In life, she might lead you astray. Yeah, we're moving. Goodbye, everybody. Please help me out. No Ben After Dark today. I will be speaking at this event, but Outside the Box will pick back up 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So you all have... Yeah, I'm going to change the setting. I'm going to grab some lunch, and I'm going to get that rolling, Eljo. I'll message you when I'm up and running. You all have a lovely rest of your afternoon, and I will talk to you all tomorrow morning.